In this podcast special, Irish reporter Donagh Corby previews a historic night in Vegas Saturday where Conor McGregor takes on Dustin Poirier for the third time in what is essentially a must-win fight for the Dublin man. Donagh, who is a combat sports reporter with The Mirror, previews the fight and lays out just how important the clash is for McGregor's legacy in the UFC. We also take a look back on how the Irishman forged his path in America to become the highest paid athlete in the world last year. We also touch on some of his public controversies and their impact on his reputation among Irish people and people around the world. You can follow Donagh's top class reporting and analysis on Twitter via @DonaghCorby_. That's DONAGHCORBY_. And don't forget to check out our updated website for the latest Irish-American sports news stories, including New York GA match reports. That's www.thelonghaulpodcast.com, and all of our podcasts are up on the site too. Donagh moved to New York in late 2019, but was actually forced to move home when COVID hit. So I started off the podcast by asking Donagh about that experience. Donagh, thanks for coming on the Long Haul podcast. I remember vividly the first night I met you. I was in the garden. I sat down. There was this well-dressed gentleman next to me. I said, "Who's this guy?" Introduced yourself. Had a little check on Twitter. There was Donagh with like 10,000 followers on Twitter with the blue tick. I was like, who is this guy? And I subsequently found out that you're a very esteemed combat sports journalist, very, very knowledgeable in the area. So thanks for coming on.
It is an honor to be on with you. That's a very nice introduction. I want everyone to know the followers are all fake. It's all bullshit. It's all a facade. Sorry, I shouldn't swear, but yes, I continue. Yes, of course. Thank you very much for having me. It's an honor to be on with you, Michael.
No problem. So, Donagh, so you were in America, so like you have an American connection. Tell us when you first came to the US. You're at home now, but tell us about your brief American journey.
Yeah, man. So I've always loved New York City specifically, and America in a wider sense. I've always just loved the culture. I've loved the diversity. I've loved how everything. I've loved how the aim. There was, I think it was Gavin McInnes said, like everyone in America, even the most poor people, even the people living on the side of the street, are temporarily embarrassed rich people. And I've always loved that mindset. You know, I've always loved this idea that that over there, success is something that you should always strive for, which is sometimes not the case here. So yeah, I've always loved New York City specifically, and basically yeah. So I finished up college, and I had done a couple of years with the Irish Mirror while I was in college, and I'd finished that up while I was out of it, and I got this opportunity to a graduate visa, which, as you know, is an interesting experience for sure. So I graduated. I went over. Obviously, we met at the Garden that night. That was a special night. It was a special week, really, that whole thing, you know, my first week in New York, and I got to be there for 3 months, you know, and I kind of got a job somewhere, and then the visa company got in the way, and, you know, like things were maybe beginning to work out, or maybe we were at a crossroads where things were either going to work out in the first and second week of March, or they were not going to work out. And unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to find out which one of those things was going to go down, because on obviously you know, like the 10th to about Paddy's Day of March last year, everything got shut down, and like, you know, we got recommended that people on my visa, non-immigrant visas, should go home. So I've been back in Ireland for the last little while, but yeah, New York was special. I think about it pretty much every day, and I'm planning to return as soon as Sleepy Joe opens up the borders.
Brilliant. So, Donagh, you're quite accomplished for being such a young man. Like, you've plenty of written work, but combat sports is your main area. I know you do MMA, boxing, everything, bit of WWE. I saw you interviewing Logan Paul, was it, at one stage? Yeah. So you're well versed. Tell us about your background.
Yeah, so I was actually initially into soccer. Like, I was real into soccer when I was younger. That would be football to everyone back here, but I know that you're in the States. I know that you're all, and it's not actually football to people from Cork, isn't that correct? People from Cork would consider it to be soccer. I know that. I know from my background in Bandon, but yeah, man, I think I was real into soccer, and I very, very early on, you won't understand this experience because I understand you're actually pretty good at football. I was terrible. I was bad, bro. I was on the D team. So we had a Premier team, a Major team, an A team, a B team, a C team, and then the D team. And I was on the subs bench on the D team, and I'm sitting on the subs bench on the D team, and I'm thinking it's not going to happen. This whole being a footballer thing. Evidently looking at me, I'm not a professional athlete in any way. So I very quickly realized the football thing not going to happen. But I was watching matches on Sky Sports, and I was thinking that guy who interviews them afterwards, the guy, I thought that guy, I could be him. Like we don't even see that guy. He could be, God knows. And there are some real, interesting people back there. So I thought, yeah, like that could be me. And I decided when I was a little kid, I was in first year in secondary school, so I was 12, that I was going to do this little YouTube channel. So I went around to all the League of Ireland games, and I would bring my dad along with me, and we'd record my interviews with all these League of Ireland players. So I did that for a few years, and then I made it into college by the skin of my teeth, just about. I was terrible in school because I was spending all the time I should have been studying at these League of Ireland games, and um, I went to college. I went to DIT. It was my eighth choice on the CAO, and that's like one of the things I always
Whoa,
tell young
whoa,
prospective professionals in anything is doing the CAO in the Leaving Cert is so important because I got my eighth choice,
whoa.
and it ended up leading me to meeting a guy called JP Kieran's who was working with the Mirror at the time, who had connections there. And when an internship came up, he was able to get me in and help me ingratiate myself there. And then I stuck around there for 3 years while I was finishing my degree. And I got real into MMA around the time that Connor was on the come up, So I'm a
Yeah,
casual for most people. Or for most people at my level of reporting, like most people consider me to be a casual. But I got into it around that time, and when I was at the Mirror, it was McGregor Mania, bro. It was right around the time he was fighting Floyd, so there was like, you couldn't move for Conor McGregor stories. So I basically got real into that and built up some stuff there. So that's how I got into the whole combat sports reporting thing. And yeah, since then, yeah, I worked for 3 years at the Mirror, went over to the States. Unfortunately, didn't work out. Maybe I can try it again. And then I came back here. I was plugging away doing different things. I was working in marketing for a little bit. I was, trying out other things, and then this opportunity with the UK Mirror, which is a different branch than where I worked before, came up to be an exclusively boxing and UFC reporter, and I thought that sounds literally like the dream, and it has
yeah.
been going pretty okay so far. So that's a very long answer to what I'm sure you were expecting a few words for. So I apologize for that boring answer, but
No,
yeah,
I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued being a reporter, and I just one caveat. When I saw you that night we were in the Colin's dressing room
yeah,
afterwards, and I just was just amazed by the confidence you had going around interviewing everyone and the questions. You had your tripod phone,
yeah.
interviewing. Does that come easy to you? Because for me personally, I got into journalism a bit late. I was very
Mhm,
hesitant. I never liked the
mhm,
sound of my voice.
yeah.
It
No, I
was
hate
very,
mine too.
I was very nervous, even still. Like, but the way you just brushed in, I was just amazed by it. Is it something that comes naturally to you?
I like. I don't know. I don't even. I suppose the answer would be yeah. I hate talking about myself in any
Yeah.
way at all. I just it sucks. But yeah, like I guess I suppose it does because I wouldn't have even thought about that. But yeah, I think I'm just like I'm just a stickler for like create. There's so much buzzwords that I don't want to say, but they are true. Like I do just love creating stuff. I do just like making quote unquote content.
Yeah.
And I suppose there are things you have to do, but I'm also not that confident. There's a lot of things that I'll try to wriggle out of if I can. But that night in MSG, I guess maybe the adrenaline got to me because it's like you're working on things for so long. Like I say, well, I started that soccer thing when I was like a little kid. So in theory, I've been a journalist at that point.
Mm.
2009, I started in 2011 or 10. Like it's almost a decade, and I'm now getting to report at MSG. What a great,
Yeah.
night. So I'm sure I was just, relishing the opportunity that we had, but I appreciate that compliment. That's very
No,
nice of you to
you're
say.
modest. I was very
Uh,
taken, top reporter, and we're following you on. Like, are your pieces featuring in the Irish Mirror now as well? Don't know how would people?
yeah. So basically, yeah. If people want to follow me on Twitter, I can do the plug at the end. But Donagh Corby is Donagh Corby underscore is my Twitter, and then Instagram. But yeah, things go on mirror.co.uk. If you look up their boxing or MMA coverage, you'll likely find my name there
Okay.
most times during the week. And then um, it some of it goes over to the Irish Mirror as well, and some of it goes around the place. So I'm sure if people want to find me, I'm sure it won't be
Okay.
particularly difficult.
Moving along, so to the crux of the matter. Mystic Mac, the
Yes.
notorious Conor McGregor, fighting this weekend in the trilogy with Dustin Poirier. Tell us, Donna, just give us a brief overview. Like McGregor, like his story, rags to riches. We all
Yeah.
loved it. We all rode that wave. His reputation is after taking a bit of a dent, and that's what we're going to get into. But
Hmm.
just give us a background on McGregor and how quick he rose up through the ranks in UFC.
Look, it's completely unheard of. I was on another show recently and I was talking about how it's nothing we've ever seen before. Like, for example, if you look at any other aspect of Irish life where someone has had a great bit of success, like when Roy Keane was this world class soccer player, there had been world class players before. There had been top class players from Ireland before. So he knew what Liam Brady looked like. He knew what John Jaws was like, and even if you look at like Bono, and U2, they had seen top class bands coming from Ireland before. There was no UFC fighter at all, even at the lowest level from Ireland. Tom Egan had fought once. I believe there was another Northern Irish fighter. His name escapes me right now, but there wasn't even like a journeyman fighter in the UFC.
Yeah.
And Conor McGregor had this vision that he was going to be the biggest athlete in the world in a sport that wasn't even that big, where no one had ever done it before from his country. There was no one like him, and he manifested it, man. I mean, you talk about like The Secret, and you talk about the energies in the universe and stuff. And this is someone who kept saying it when everybody, like, how Ireland is. You say that you're going to do something spectacular, and people don't really love to hear that so much. Like, people don't support that as much as they do. Like I was saying in the States, that's part of
Yeah.
what I love about it. But there's like there's a million prospective Conor McGregors in the States. There was really only a couple over here. You had Cathal Pendred, you Paddy Houlihan. There was obviously other fighters. Chris Fields was a great fighter, and then of course John Kavanagh in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. Andy Ryan was a great coach too. But there wasn't a pathway, and he forged it himself. And he's now the richest athlete in the world. It's unbelievable. It's a story that they say all the time you couldn't write that. You couldn't make it up. It's an unbelievably interesting story. And look, his reputation has taken a bit of a hit. People still love him though, and some people hate him, some people love him. More people hate him than did at his peak. But it's still an incredible story, even if you do hate him.
Yeah. So let's just go back on just a quick synopsis of his
Mm-hmm.
career. Like he rose up through the ranks quickly. I think it was 2015. He beat Aldo there for his first UFC title, and then of course he became the champ or whatever. So he fought at a couple of divisions. Like, what's your take on like McGregor as a fighter? Like, he meets the hype. Obviously, is he one of the best that's ever been, or has the hype maybe brought him further than where he ordinarily would have been?
It's a great question. Look, I'm not the historian that a lot of other reporters would be. I'll tell you though, his record kind of speaks for itself. He's beat Max Holloway, who a lot of people think is one of the best featherweights ever. A lot of people believe that Jose Aldo is the best featherweight ever. At the time, he'd only lost once in his whole career. Beat Chad Mendes, who was the top of his game. Beat Eddie Alvarez for the world title. Eddie Alvarez is, at the time, once again, an absolutely top competitor, maybe not considered so much now. Beat Dustin Poirier, who went on to become a champion. Diego Brandao won the Ultimate Fighter. Even people he beat on the regional scene, like he won his second Cage Warriors title off Ivan Bushinger, and like Bushinger's a talented fighter at his own right. So look, he's probably not going to go down as one of the greats in terms of his in the cage style, simply because he has had a good old period of inactivity. But I think that other than one fight he had before he fought Mendes and Aldo, he fought a guy called Dennis Seaver. And I always say that, like, if he just beat Poirier and then waited for the title shot, his legacy would be so much better, because people felt like Poirier was at a higher level than Seaver. So there's this perception that people have, and that first impressions are everything. And a lot of people believe that he was fighting bums or something. Dustin Poirier is not a bum. Diego Brandao is not a bum. Max Holloway is not a bum. But Dennis Seaver is not quite at that level. So yeah, I think his record speaks for itself. He's beaten a lot of world class people. He is a world class. He's a double champion, the first ever double champion. I don't know if he'll go down as one of the greats, but he should. Like he is one of the greats. I suppose I would consider him to be.
The UFC, obviously, an American set up by Dana White, and
Hmm.
McGregor, I suppose, as it was building, I suppose he jumped on that wave, and I suppose he brought the UFC to a level maybe that it never would have been. Is that fair to say? So, like the point of view we're bringing on here to look at the American aspect. So, like he took the world by storm. He's one of our
Yeah.
greatest exports in terms of athletes. So the
Hmm.
impact he's had on not on only America but the world is just unbelievable. Whenever someone meets me or I go into a restaurant, or you're Irish, it's always,
Yeah.
oh, McGregor. It's
Yeah.
like I'll be the Corkman. Roy Keane will be like my favorite sports star, but McGregor has got that name. He's had the biggest impact by far, and of course he was
Yeah.
able to, of course, fight Floyd Mayweather in that crossover match, just to show you how big of an appeal he is.
He's literally, like I said, he's literally named by Forbes this year the richest athlete in the world. He's the number one superstar. LeBron James is right up there. Cristiano Ronaldo is right up there. And I suppose Cristiano Ronaldo probably has the bigger name recognition, but he's a gigantic megastar who's absolutely there, which is crazy because you think like football's around hundreds of years, basketball's around God knows how long,
Mm.
but MMA as a whole sport is like 40 years old or so. So it's really it's an incredible thing that McGregor has been able to do. And obviously the UFC was pretty mainstream by the time he got there. There's this idea that like he dragged it into the mainstream. That's not true. It was pretty high up there, but he definitely has played a huge part in the success it has today because it's now like the UFC smokes boxing, man, most of the time. Um, and that's pretty cool. And McGregor has played a big part in where MMA is now and the UFC is now.
So, like his hype, the bravado, the showmanship, he really is such an appeal.
Yeah,
Marketing wise, he's got a brain on him. Like
sure
obviously
has.
the proper whiskey to promote that. So he has his reputation has taken a bit of a dent in the last couple of years. I would argue that it's probably mainly been intact, especially here in America amongst the Americans around the world. It's remained intact. I'm not sure you're in Ireland now, Don, obviously, but has it taken a bigger of a hit at home? Some of the controversies he's had.
Bro, I'll
Let's
tell you,
just, he's got
it's a
like he had a couple of driving offenses at home. I think that was the one that did it for me actually. He was like, well, really irked me. He was
yeah,
in court for the driving. He pulled up Lamborghini or something. The doors come open, wearing a tracksuit, holding his face like
yeah,
Martin Cahl. I was like, oh man, this is so
not a
bad.
good
Like
look.
so many people looked up to you. You know, you're supposed to be
Hmm.
an icon. You're supposed to be someone that the youth are supposed to look up to, and this kind of stuff that you're getting involved in, it really, that was one of the things that pissed me. I think the incident there, of course, there was the incident in Brooklyn there where he flew over,
Correct.
got a trolley dolly, threw it at a bus, hurt a
Yep.
couple of people. I think people were at the time they weren't sure if this was scripted or not. That it didn't take.
It was so ludicrous that people had to think it was scripted because it
Yeah,
was such a wild thing to do. But yeah, he's certainly had quite a few controversies. And I suppose to answer your question, uh, like it's really hard to gauge. Like there's a lot of people who will tell you based on their social
yeah,
interactions, oh yeah, he's not even close to as popular. But then I was at a Bellator show right before I went to the States, September 2019. So maybe like his reputation has only gotten better the last year and a half or so.
mm,
Um, but I was at this Bellator show, and it was right after he punched that guy in the pub, right?
yeah.
And that had happened a while ago, but the video had only just come out on TMZ, so people had seen it. And this video was out, and people were really pissed off, and all you could hear from people was how much we hate Conor McGregor. And then I'm at this event, and it's all the MMA fans, and it's 15,000 people or however many there was, 12,000 maybe. And this place erupts when he walks in. He walked in to support his friend Peter Queally, who was fighting, James Gallagher was fighting,
Yeah.
And I've never heard anything like it. The people loved him, and I went to an event that he was supposed to be at that he didn't show up to, and people were there just to see him. I think the reports of his demise as a fan favorite are greatly exaggerated. That's not to say that he hasn't lost popularity. He of course has. I know that like little things like when he fought Mendez, I remember every single one of my friends, we all got together, we had to find somewhere to watch this McGregor fight. It isn't like that anymore. There wasn't that much of a buzz around the Poirier fight. It was still a record breaking pay per view in the States, I suppose, and over here, people do still love him. Like I think if he fought over here, if he fought at Croke Park, he would probably sell it
Yeah.
out. So I think that he's got a great deal of popularity, more so than maybe people would like you to believe. And I think he's doing just fine over here, and of course in the States as well.
Do you think it's more of a generational issue that maybe the young people, 20s, 30s, they'll follow him no matter what, and maybe it's
Yeah,
the older crew would
yeah.
say,
I suppose it's generational. I suppose that, like, look,
yeah,
I say this to people, and they don't want to hear it because he's done some things that are very bad, and he's been accused of some things that are also very bad. But he, like, people don't want to hear that they didn't really like him before all of that stuff.
yeah,
He, in the public, in terms of the public eye, obviously we'd heard stories here or there, like, stories you'd hear in the back of a taxi or whatever. But in terms of actual stories that the public knew, there was nothing on him when he fought Floyd Mayweather, and people were starting to get sick of him when he fought Floyd Mayweather. And I think that it's because we don't like being favorites here. We like the underdogs. We like we like the rags to riches, but we don't actually love the riches part.
yeah,
Like, I think it's so funny how like someone like there's any amount of people in Irish popular culture, like I went to see Ronan Keating one time, and he struggled to sell out the Dublin venue, and the UK tour, every single ticket was gone in 2 seconds. But the Dublin people didn't want to come out and see the Ronan Keating, and they'll say that it's because of X, Y, Z. And they'll say that, oh, he's not that great. It's because he's successful, and we don't really love the success. We love the getting to it. We love the
yeah,
underdog story. We don't actually love the guy driving around the Lamborghini,
yeah. That's
because
true.
that is a constant reminder of what most people here are not. And people think it's too big for his boots. I don't know that it's too big for your boots when you're a world champion 2 times over. I don't know what constitutes too big for your boots in that situation. But yeah, man, I think we just don't like I think we just like underdogs here. We don't necessarily like favorites.
The
We don't like
Irish,
winners here.
the Irish begrudgery maybe
Exactly. Yeah.
kicks in then. So
Exactly.
let's get down to let's get down to the fight. So at the weekend,
Hmm.
Donna, it's the third clash between the two of them. McGregor obviously won the first one, was beaten in the second one. Coming into the third one now, he's probably better prepared. We'll just go back over the first two. So the initial one when McGregor beat him easy first time round.
Yeah, it was it was a featherweight, which a lot of people don't take into account. Like I think Dustin Poirier finds it tough to make lightweight, and that was another 10 pounds. And like 10 pounds at that level, like Dustin Poirier is in very good shape at 170, at 155. To get another 10 pounds off, that takes something out of you.
Okay.
So I think that played a huge part in the first fight that people don't really like to remember. And then I remember saying this, like when Poirier fought Joe Duffy, I remember saying on Twitter, I'm not sure if the tweet's still there, but I said Conor McGregor versus Dustin Poirier at lightweight is a very interesting fight. Maybe not so much,
Yeah.
back at featherweight, and then they fought again. Sorry, so the first one, yeah, it was a decent. Look, it was an incredible performance from McGregor. It was the performance that allowed people to understand, oh, this guy is for real, because a lot of times people falter on that stage. Sean O'Malley, you know, he fought Cheeto Vera, which is like your step up performance, fell down. He slipped, and it's happened for a few people. But
Mm.
Connor really destroyed someone like Poirier, who's like an incredible, world level fighter, at world champion level competitor. And yeah, it was a great performance. But I do think that the weight class played a big factor.
And the second time around, so what was it? 5 months
Hmm.
ago, he came back. He was out for about a year, wasn't he?
Yep.
He had only fought about a year earlier, which was another quick fight, and he was
Hmm.
back. How do you think that went? Like I think he won the first round. It seemed to be going well for McGregor in the first round. He was landing
Yeah.
some blows, and then all of a sudden, Poirier was landing these calf shots. And for me, as a kind of a layman following UFC, I was like, why isn't he protecting himself? And he
Hmm.
kept getting hit, and of course that was the undoing of him. But from your expert point of view,
Expert,
what vantage
yeah.
point, what was your take on the second fight?
Certainly not an expert, by the way, but yeah, I think that it was an interesting one, man. I think, look, Dustin Poirier, like I said, is a world level competitor. I think that Conor McGregor came back into it. He thought, I've beat this guy. I knocked him out in 2 minutes. Now he's got a big name. He's a bigger name
Yeah,
now. let's give him a little rematch. I'm going to fight Manny Pacquiao in a couple of months. He had his boxing coach in, Philip Sutcliffe from the Crumlin Boxing Club, and obviously Philip Sutcliffe is a phenomenal boxing coach who he probably should have brought in when he fought Mayweather, who he chose not to. Um, but he's someone whose knowledge of MMA is severely lacking, and it it's tough to bring in someone like that. It's a huge risk. It pays off sometimes, and it paid off when he fought Cowboy Cerrone because he obliterated that guy. But he's brought that guy in. I think that was a big factor. He was doing a lot of boxing sparring. He had guys like Willow Hayden, who's a good professional who just signed with Frank Warren. A guy called Dylan Moran, who I believe is on the cusp of maybe signing a big professional promotional deal. And these are guys who are top level boxers, but they're not guys who are going to kick at your legs. They're not guys who are going to shoot to take you down. He didn't have, unfortunately, Peter Queally was injured. I believe Artem Lobov was unavailable. These are great training partners of his. He had a sort of a different kind of a camp. He had a lot of people in there who I would have thought were kind of interesting training partners to have. He had a guy called Kosti Gnasariev from Bellator, who's a very good fighter, but I also thought a little young. I thought not really someone who's going to be able to, in a sparring session, take him into deep waters, not a world level guy. Like, obviously Artem Lobov isn't world level, but he's, a very high, like he's high enough level and knows Conor well enough from having sparred him so much. He knows how to take Conor to the deep end. He knows exactly what to do in those sparring sessions. So I thought that, yeah, the preparation seemed to me like it was not adequate. And it appears now that what he's done is he's got himself to California. He's incredibly focused. I just spoke to Uriah Faber earlier today, and he was telling me that he's been texting with Conor, and Conor is completely singular-minded. He just had a child back in Dubai with his wife, Dee Devlin, or his wife just had a child called Rian, and he's left the family back in Dubai, which is a huge step to take. Like, it's massive. So I think. Look, his preparation seems to be better. I saw this great picture James Gallagher shared the other day of the team. Conor wasn't in the picture, but all the people in the gym. And it was like, oh yeah, that's the team that won him world titles. Owen Roddy's there, John Kavanagh's there, Peter Queally is there. I thought, yeah, that's a world level team. Not to say that his team for the rematch wasn't, but it was different. Like, I think it was he had different things on his mind, but I think if I'm honest, I think he's looking at the lightweight division, looking at Charles Oliveira, and kind of thinking, if I can get myself to the level I was at, Charles Oliveira is about Eddie Alvarez's level. He's around that tier of fighter, and I can beat him. I've beaten people who are better than Charles Oliveira before, and he's thinking, I can be lightweight champion again, and look, we're going to see if he's at world level anymore on Saturday night.
Yeah, and the build up, like, I've been keeping an eye on it online. It's been a very low key build up in terms of McGregor. He's not doing media appearances. There hasn't been anything. You don't know a lot what's going on. That's been a bit different to other fights, is it? And do you think that's a good thing?
He took an interesting tact going into the Cerrone and the Poirier fights, which was to be like what people dub as like nice Conor. He was very respectful of his opponents and all the rest of it. And he did this huge virtual media tour for the Poirier rematch, because obviously everything was on Zoom. And I believe he was saying to Ariel Helwani how if it was always just a Zoom media thing, he could do 20 million interviews.
Yeah.
But, I think it will ramp up. I believe he has a more low-key media day on Wednesday where he's going to speak to a whole load of press, and that's going to be when it really ramps up. People who know about this fight, and I think, yeah, it's low key. What Uriah Faber told me was that he's not concerned with anything other than getting in the cage and righting the wrong with Dustin Poirier. And unfortunately for us in the media, unfortunately for people around the world who want to be seeing the trash talking Conor, I think he's singular minded right now. So the build up is going to be low key. Maybe unfortunately for the UFC too. I'm sure they would like more old school Conor, but I think it's still going to be a pretty big event.
No trolleys been thrown into buses down in Brooklyn. But do you think that speaks to the actual how much is on the line for McGregor this weekend?
Oh, yeah.
If he loses this, where does he stand?
That's a great question, Michael. I think like he would have to consider his career. He will have then lost four of his last five. He'd be 1-4 in his, I suppose, 1-3 in MMA, and then he obviously lost his boxing fight as well. And even then, he's like, if you include the boxing fight and this, he will then be 5-3 in his last eight. Like since he won the featherweight title, like it's not a world level record. You know, he will at that point have lost to Dustin Poirier, Khabib, and Nate Diaz as well as the boxing match. And it's like those those are three very different kinds of fighters. Like Nate Diaz is not a world level fighter, and he lost to him, and he lost obviously Khabib is a he's one of the greatest fighters of all time apparently, but Dustin Poirier, another one who you would have to think that the Conor McGregor that was handily beating Jose Aldo, the Conor McGregor that made Eddie Alvarez look like an amateur, that guy would be thinking that Dustin Poirier is also not quite at that level. But we're going to find out how much there is left with the whole Conor thing. I don't think, to be honest with you, if he loses, I don't think we're a bazillion miles away from. I think we'd be maybe one or two fights away from eventually seeing him face off with Jake Paul.
Really, you think it's going to happen?
I think if he loses, I think
Yeah.
he might have to reconsider.
Because I think he's 33 in about 2 weeks' time, I think. So
Yeah.
where
He's still
does
young.
you think is that young as a UFC fighter? Is it?
I would have said it was young enough, but what I've heard from people who know more than I do is that what you need to do is take when someone made their pro debut and then add 8 years, and that's when they're in their prime. They'll never get better from after that 8 year point, and that would take you to 2016 when he was the double champion. So I don't know if like that's just a theory. I don't know how true that is or anything, but it makes sense. So we'll see. Look, he's like 32 is pretty young. He hasn't taken a huge amount of damage. He got knocked out by Poirier, but Mayweather didn't badly hurt him. Nate Diaz gave him a good L fight now in their rematch, more so than their first one because that was finished pretty quickly. Khabib beat him up, but he didn't like. It's not like Khabib like obliterated him or anything. He won a round in there and he got submitted. He tapped out, but like that last Poirier fight was the first time we saw him get like really rocked and hurt. Well, no, he's been hurt by Diaz, but the first time we saw him get like really, you know, put down and knocked out. So we're going to see. But I think he's got a good bit of gas left in the tank, regardless, which makes it an interesting contest.
And what do you think his goals are left in the UFC? If
Look,
become a champion again, and how long do you
yeah.
think if he becomes champion, would he want to defend it, or would he just pack it in once he gets?
The thing is, if he becomes champion again, then a lot of doors open up. Maybe Floyd wants to come out and try to do a second fight if he's the champion again. Maybe Manny Pacquiao is interested again in doing that fight. I think, from what I can tell, the Pacquiao thing might be thawing a little bit because there's some issues between his management and there's issues between McGregor's management, Paradigm Sports, and Pacquiao. So maybe that would thaw a small bit. But there's boxing options if he becomes champion. He could retire as champ after having proven that he's still at that level. There are options for him though. Maybe he takes the title and says, "Hey, I was never a reigning defending champion," and he decides. Maybe he decides he wants to tour. Maybe he decides he fought in Vegas for his whole career, barring that one in New York, and barring the one in Abu Dhabi. He's a Vegas-based fighter. Maybe he decides, I want to do Boston again. I want to do New York again. I want to do Dublin again. And he's the lightweight champion, so he says, okay, well, I'm lightweight champion, and I call the shots. Maybe we do Nate Diaz 3 in Dublin. And, he's going to, that would be special, and look, Nate Diaz is someone he would beat. Like Michael Bisping fought Dan Henderson in his first title defense, and a lot of people thought Dan Henderson wasn't quite, at that level, but what he does, he wanted to fight someone in Manchester who had a bit of meaning to him, and I think, that would be an interesting one. So maybe he tours. I don't know what he does, but I think both him and Poirier have a tough hell time of it against Charles Oliveira as well.
Okay. Going back to the weekend, so how do you think, how was McGregor going to change? What's his approach going to be this weekend, and how will it vary from the last time?
Look, you said it yourself. The calf kicks are a serious concern. He'd be crazy if he wasn't constantly working on that, and he does know how to defend them. Like he knows how to throw them as well. Like he's a he's an expert level mixed martial artist. He does know how to defend them. He went in planning to stand and trade with Poirier and planning to put him out in the first fight. I don't think he was prepared for that. He's more than prepared for it now. I don't even think Poirier is going to bother throwing those kicks again. He knows it's so unlikely that they're going to land with the same efficiency. I do think that he got taken down pretty easily in that first fight, and people forget that because of the leg kicks. But Dustin shot in with a double leg that wouldn't be getting down most decent MMA fighters, and he got Conor down to the ground. And obviously, that's an area where he struggles. I don't think he's as bad on the ground as people make out that he is, but he's certainly not the. He certainly doesn't train with ATT level wrestlers all the time that like Dustin Poirier does. So I think Poirier's path to victory is probably through working his way into towards Conor's legs and getting a takedown, getting it to the ground. I think if he thinks he's going to knock Conor out again, he's in big, big trouble. But if Conor thinks that it's going to be enough to keep it up and keep it down, I think both of these guys are in for a decent little. I think we're in for a proper scrap here on Saturday night. To be honest, I think Poirier has shown he does have a chin. Conor is obviously a world-class fighter, a world champion, and you've got two guys in there, one of whom, by the way, could be chilling out on a beach in Dubai right now. One of whom literally could be doing anything else and is choosing to do this. Just made hundreds of millions from selling his whiskey company. There is no reason why Conor McGregor would be taking this fight unless he definitely believed, I am going to be a lightweight champion again. And Dustin Poirier also believes he's going to be lightweight champion again. Dustin Poirier will keep fighting until he is lightweight champion again. He never got the undisputed strap. He got the interim one. And I think we've got two really, really hungry fighters on Saturday night.
Will McGregor be looking for the early knockout? And as things go on, the longer they go on, does that work against McGregor and in favour of Poirier?
I don't know. To be honest with you, I don't think people quite understand how intense. You've played a high level of Gaelic football, and it's an intense at that high level of athleticism. And I don't think people understand that a 5-round MMA fight is as athletically difficult as a marathon. And nobody really maintains that pace. People like Colby Covington moderate their pace very well, but it's not like people fight like Poirier and McGregor fight and don't get tired. So, I think it's not as big of a deal if it goes late as people make out that it is. I do think that it probably does favor Poirier. He probably does have a gas tank, and that is probably where the desire comes in and the hunger comes in. And Poirier is hungry because he's never tasted proper gold. He's tasted interim gold. He's been champion. He's been in title fights. He fought Khabib. But Conor's been to the mountaintop and then some. Conor's gone farther than the mountaintop. He's exceeded what is possible. Because what people forget is he came to the UFC. There were top level champions. George St. Pierre wanted to try win the middleweight title. They wouldn't let him. Anderson Silva wanted to go for the 205 title or wanted to box Roy Jones Jr. They wouldn't let him do it. Conor was so good. He commanded such an interest that he was able to do things that the UFC would normally never allow people to do. So he exceeded the mountaintop. And when you get to the later rounds in a fight, someone who's kind of been there already is going to struggle a little bit. But I also don't think that it's athletically that big of a difference like people think it is. Conor McGregor is a world level athlete, and I think we'll see that as the fight progresses. He went the distance and beat Nate Diaz. Nate Diaz is an incredibly gifted athlete. So I think look, it favors Poirier a little bit. It's certainly not a game changer if it goes the distance. But I do think Conor's going to try get him out of there early, and he might even do it too.
When I watched the last fight, I was kind of I was struck, but he just reminded me of that reach he has, that kind of underhand kind of corkscrew, the reach he gets and the power he gets when he gets down. It's just unbelievable how he can just get so much power into it with the reach. So is that his favorite weapon? Will that be what he'll be looking to?
I would imagine. He's a long guy. His ability to control the range is phenomenal. He was able to maintain control of the range for a decent length of time against Floyd Mayweather in the boxing ring. Very few people are able to do that. And I think that's a massive factor, Michael. I think you're dead right there. And I think if he can if he can do that, if he can stop Poirier from, like, Poirier's got a very particular game plan he's going to have to follow, and if McGregor can stop that, then he's absolutely in the ascendancy. And of course, that left hand is a great equalizer, but he's not like a Deontay Wilder who throws these gigantic power punches and has nothing else. He's
Mm.
got a lot of facets to his game, and I think we're in for a real interesting fight because of a number of the factors that you've listed so far, Michael.
I put you on the spot. Who's going to win?
Yeah. Oh gosh.
We want to know.
Gosh, it's a tough question, and I don't know how many people care about my opinion, man. But I think uh, the smart money. I do think the smart money's with Conor McGregor, man. But I don't want to jinx it. I bet on Conor one time, the first Nate Diaz fight.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't necessarily be betting on what I say. But wouldn't it just be nice if Conor won? Wouldn't it be? Wouldn't it just make all of our lives a whole lot more
No,
interesting?
we're Irish. We need to bet on everything. Everything has to be a bet.
So please God, Conor McGregor wins.
I'm just looking at the odds here now, and actually, Poirier is actually 4-5 favorite with McGregor even money. Odds
So
tip
they're
5-6
it's
even money.
essentially identical odds. Like Poirier is the minuscule level favorite, but I think, look, he should be. He knocked Conor out in the last fight, and Conor is, like, in under any normal metric, you would consider him past it. Like, no athlete would generally ever keep competing at the level he competes at if they were at the level of financial security he's at. But he clearly is a bit mad. He's a bit tapped, and he would probably admit that himself.
Yeah.
And he really wants to be lightweight champion again. So he needs to win on Saturday night. He actually doesn't need to win. People like to say it doesn't matter if he gets fucking knocked the fuck out on Saturday night. He's still Conor McGregor, but if he wants to be lightweight champion again, he needs to win. But of course, Poirier also needs to win that because the path to gold is going to be all over the place if he manages to lose a second one to Conor. So yeah, I think I'm gonna go with McGregor, but I certainly wouldn't be betting money on my predictions. I would go to a better expert than me if you want to find out who you think is going to win that one. But yeah, let's say Conor McGregor. And
Your
hopefully
analysis has been top class, Donagh. So give yourself some credit.
Thank you.
Tell me, are there any other kind of up and coming or any people that will follow in the path of McGregor? Any Irish UFC MMA fighters?
Yeah, bro. Look, I don't want to be that guy because it seems like the common answer to this question is a guy called Ian Gary who's fighting in Cage Warriors at the moment. That's like a fool's answer. Anyone would answer that, but it's the truth. He is probably going to be in the UFC soon. Otherwise, we've got a few decent fighters. I think there's a guy called Nathan Kelly, a good amateur. We got a few different people. I think Peter Queally is probably going to be competing for a Bellator title soon enough. I do believe James Gallagher will be world level at some point. And then yeah, you look around the ranks. Like I said, there was a guy called, like I say, Kosti Gnusariev. I think there's a young man based out of Mayo called Ian Coughlin, who's a very, very talented fighter. I believe he's 1-1 as a professional. But there's another guy called Andreas Binder, also based out of Galway, who I think is going to be really high level. So let me give you three. Ian Gary, like I say, the fool's answer, but Ian Gary is the top. Let's say Andreas Binder, number 2, and then third we'll go for another fool's answer, James Gallagher.
Perfect. There's a guy who I came across there when he's on the main card, Sean O'Malley.
Yes, good
he's
fighter.
got some Irish heritage. Not sure about the haircut.
Come on, bro.
Not sure
Ridiculous.
about the hair. Good, but I think he definitely embraces his Irish heritage. I think his grandmother is Irish. What kind of a fighter is he?
He's a very, very good fighter. Is the answer. He's a bantamweight. He's a really exciting prospect. He's super young. Like he might be younger than me. I think I'm 23. I could be wrong, but he's he's a real prospect, man. Look, he lost to Marlon Chito Vera, which is a bad loss. No, he's a little older than me. He's 26, but he, yeah, he's definitely quote unquote one to watch, and I think he's going to smoke this lad on the fight this week. He was supposed to be facing a guy called Louis Smolka, who had to pull out because of an injury, and now he's fighting a guy called Chris Moutinho, who is a newcomer to the promotion, has come in at last minute. I think he's going to smoke this guy. I think it's going to be a highlight reel knockout. Look, I've been wrong on these things before, and a lot of people have. But yeah, Sean O'Malley's a real one to watch in the bantamweight. Excuse me, in the bantamweight division, and we're going to see. We're not going to see on Saturday night. I don't think we're going to gain much knowledge on how good he is on Saturday. We're going to see in his next fight how good he is.
And are you still doing boxing reporting with the Mirror? How are we looking with the
Yeah,
Irish
man.
pros?
Yeah, man. Look, that's another interesting one. Michael Conlan's coming back to Ireland on August the 7th, or August the 6th, I believe, to fight in
Yeah,
Belfast, which is
yeah.
going to be phenomenal, man. Like, we haven't had live sport at all. We've got like a couple of football matches where 100 people are allowed to go to the Aviva Stadium, which is insane. Like, you might as well not have a crowd. So to have a big packed out Falls Park is going to be monumental. I'm planning on going to the States, assuming Sleepy Joe opens the borders in the next couple of weeks. I'm planning on going to the States like at the start of August for a few weeks, and I literally am pushing that plan back because I need to be there for the Michael Conlan fight. And there's a few good. And he's fighting TJ Doheny, and like a good Irishman as well. So that's going to be a cracking event. I think Luke Keeler is a very good fighter. I think Jason Quigley is probably going to be a world level fighter at some point. I would rather he didn't fight Demetrius Andrade right
Bobo.
now.
Yeah.
I'd rather he fought a couple more times. I think 2 more fights, then fight Bubo. I think it would be very smart for Demetrius Andrade to fight Jason Quigley now.
No.
I think it would not be very smart for Jason Quigley to take that fight. I think he needs a couple more. It would have been crazy for him to fight Canelo Alvarez when that was planned a few months ago. But he is also going to be a very, very good level fighter. And of course, our greatest ever athlete, boxing or otherwise, Katie Taylor, is going to maintain all of her world titles and hopefully go for a few more.
There's rumours Mick Conlan could be fighting towards the end of the year in America. Have you heard
That would be amazing.
anything? Will he get that world title bout?
It's possible. I think certainly if MSG becomes an option, I'm also hearing that there's a boxing event happening on the 2nd of August at the theater at MSG, which is going to be the first big full boxing event back in the States. I believe Michael Hunter's going to be in the main event of that. I'm also hearing, and I really shouldn't be saying this, but okay, I'll say it. I'm also hearing that maybe there is rumblings that the UFC will be back in November at MSG, and that's really all I can say on the matter. But that would be special too. And yeah, ideally you get that sort of middle of December coming towards Christmas show at the main MSG with hopefully a big star in the main event, and then yeah, if you could get Katie Taylor on that card, or if you could get Michael Conlan on there, it would be something special. And I'd love for Michael Conlan to fight for a world title in New York. That would be pretty cool.
I want to see Katie against Serrano. That's the one I've been waiting for quite a couple of years.
Bro, look, it's really, to be honest with you, it's really it's the super intriguing women's fight at the moment. I'm also very interested in seeing Shannon Courtney versus Rachel Ball's rematch, but I think the women's fight that everyone wants to see at the moment is either Savannah Marshall and Clarissa Shields or Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano. And I think there's no one else is at Katie's level other than Amanda Serrano. So we're going to see. We're going to find out. And hopefully that gets made soon. And hopefully Team Serrano come to an agreement. But I also understand that Amanda quite fancies herself as a decent MMA fighter. So she's going to keep trying that out.
Yeah, she went back fighting MMA, I think, a couple of months ago again. So yeah, I don't know what she's...
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, because Katie's kind of pushing on now, isn't she? I think she's 35 now. And she's high intensity. Like, there's only so long you can keep...
It's different for female athletes than it is for male, because she has to decide at some point, like Becky Lynch from WWE, she has to decide at some point, is she going to want to be a mother? Which obviously is difficult because like a male fighter can decide to be a father and it makes next to no impact on their career. But a female fighter, because of the strains that it takes in their body, she will have to make that decision at some point. And if she wants to make that decision, then that would essentially... like a year out of her career at the least, probably more like 2. at her age would probably be the end of things. So we'll see. It would be nice if she fought Serrano before she decides to hang up the gloves. And it's also up to her what she wants to do, outside of the ring. But yeah, she probably is. I think we should appreciate Katie Taylor right now
Yeah.
because she's probably not going to be around too long.
Yeah. And John O'Carroll is going to be fighting. That postponed fight is going to be in August.
Yeah, that would be cool, man. I think John O'Carroll's another real interesting prospect. I don't know what level he's at, to be honest. Like I think he's a super exciting fighter. I think he's someone who, I don't want to miss any of his fights, but
Yeah.
we're gonna find out. We're gonna see how good he is as well. Like I say, probably not in August. He's probably gonna win that one,
Yeah.
but I would hope that'll get him back on track towards the possible world fights or decent international level fights.
And I'll just finish up now because you've been very accommodating with your time. I know it's 1 o'clock at home, but we're heading into the Olympics now in a couple of weeks. How are our boxers
sir.
looking for Olympic gold?
Great question. I think, to be honest with you, that would be a better question for our friend Gavin Casey, who's been following it a little bit more closely than I have. But I would hope that Kelly Harrington is able to get something done, and I think we've got some real medal prospects, man. I think she's obviously the number one, so we're gonna find out. But these Olympics are gonna be weird, bro. So it's gonna be tough to make any prediction for these Olympics. The same as like a lot of these tournaments are mad these days. So you're seeing all sorts of crazy things happen when there's weird rules and all of that. So we're gonna find out. But I think it would be lovely if Kelly Harrington was able to get a gold medal, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. Donagh, thanks very much. I appreciate your
Thank you.
knowledge. Your knowledge on the sport is just phenomenal. The way you were able to, so I really appreciate you coming on. Thanks very much. And we have to follow you. And what's your Twitter handle again, Donagh?
Right, so my Twitter handle is at Donagh Corby and then a little underscore after that. And my Instagram at Donagh Corby, no need for the underscore on that one. And yeah, Michael, it is a true joy to be speaking to you on a Zoom call. Although I hate Zoom calls, I detest them. I think that they are a net negative for society. But of course, if you are on the other end of one, I would never say no. At 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning, or 3 in the morning. Maybe 4 is a little late, but 1, 2, 3, I could definitely do that. So yes, thank you so much for having me, Michael, and I can't wait for us to head out to the Mean Fiddler maybe.
Yes.
In New York when I'm back there. Please God. At the end of the summer.
No worries. I've just one more question came into my mind. What's happening with Jake Paul and Logan Paul?
Oh yes. My favorite
You're the
question.
man who's been covering this.
It's such an honor. It is such an honor that you would ask me that question, to be honest. I've been following these guys since before they decided to do boxing. I've been in the Low Gang forever, man. I've been a huge Low Gang member. I'm a Jake Pauler, and I said something was a net negative overall. I think these guys are a net positive for combat sports. You look at what Jake Paul is doing with Sarah Alpar recently. What they are all doing to make fights happen. Tyron Woodley is going to get a career high purse to fight Jake. Ben Askren just got a career high purse to fight Jake. Nate Robinson, a retired basketball player, was able to make prospectively millions fighting Jake because I believe he got a cut of the pay-per-view, and that Tyson and Jones pay-per-view was one of the biggest ever. So, Nate Robinson and Jake Paul both got rich, and obviously Andy Gibb as well got to fight him, and Deji in the amateurs. I think that from what I can see, Jake it's like a cliche thing to say Jake's a better boxer. I don't even know who's a better boxer. They're both at a pretty low level. They're both like very raw novices. From what I hear, Jake, it appears, has a little bit more respect for the sport, the art of boxing. It appears that like Jake legitimately views this as a career path for himself. And look, what people don't understand is that he's been training for 3 years, but that's not the same 3 years as most boxers, because when you start out boxing training, let's say you start out when you're 8 or you're 12, you've still got school to do. You've still got chores at home to do. You've got your homework. You got all this stuff. Jake Paul can decide on a whim. I'd like this world champion to come in and coach me. I'd like this top level sparring partner to come in and show me the ropes. And he can do that every day for 3 years. So his 3 years is your average amateur boxer's 12 years. So, he's at an extremely high level there's no one else who's been training for 3 years who could be even close to Jake Paul's level. Logan Paul's pretty good. I think people are not giving him credit. Going 8 rounds with Floyd Mayweather is, like I was saying earlier, the athleticism that's needed for that. To be able to not quit on your stool after 3, after 2, after 4 or 5, 8 rounds with one of the greatest of all time. A lot of top level boxers have done it. Conor McGregor went 10 with them, but this guy is a very low level novice, and he went 8 rounds with one of the greatest. It's unheard of. Like, I've never seen the likes of it. It's an unbelievably great achievement. So I think these guys are great for the sport. I think I was at Jake Paul's debut when he fought a guy called Anisong Gibb in Florida, in what would later I would find out was the greatest state in America, right? Florida.
Yeah.
But he's a decent little fighter, man, and I think him and Tyron Woodley is going to be super interesting. I would imagine he beats Tyron Woodley, and I know something that I really can't say, but I think that there's some interesting stuff on the horizon for him after that, and yeah, I think Jake Paul and Logan Paul are great for the sport of boxing overall.
You're teasing us to come back on for a follow-up.
Exactly.
Good man,
Yeah. When this news comes out, you'll know it because of the size of it, and I will come on when you hear that.
All right, no problem. Top class analysis, Donagh. Thanks very much. Really appreciate it.
No, this is a top class podcast. I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of yours personally and as a podcast host. And it is, like I say, a pleasure. And the next one will be in person. We'll be in Queens. Is this the same apartment that I dropped the charger to?
No. Actually.
Okay, not the same one.
So,
because
yeah.
Did you ever get that charger back? By the way,
side story. We were at that at that fight when Colin was fighting. I arrived home, was writing up the story, had no charger.
Yeah.
Thought I'd left it in the garden. Thought Donagh had taken it. I was writing up the story. Laptop went dead. I think I had to finish it off on my phone. It was an absolute disaster of a night.
Yeah.
But you found a laptop charger, came back to my apartment in Sunnyside at like 3 or 4 in the morning. It was someone else's charger, so that didn't work out. So no, I'm in a better spot now, kind of upgraded slightly. So
it looks nice. I love that view at the back. You look like you're living at large, man. Maybe I'll just stay on your couch. No, I probably would never do that. But it is a pleasure, man, to talk to you, and I'm happy that you're doing so well, and it is an honor to speak to you, and I can't wait to see you again soon. And also, I really hope that you did find that laptop charger in the end.
Donagh, thanks very much. Really appreciate it, and best of luck with the new role with the Mirror.
Why, Santi, my dear Annie.
And that's all for this week. Let us know who you think will win the fight this Saturday by leaving us a comment on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter at The Long Haul Podcast. Please subscribe to the show on YouTube and on your streaming provider to ensure that you get instantly notified for all new releases. You can follow Donagh's top class reporting and analysis on Twitter via @Donagh Corby _. That's DONAGHCORBY _. And don't forget to check out our updated website for the latest Irish American sports news stories, including New York GA match reports. That's thelonghaulpodcast.com, and all of our podcasts are up on the site too. If you'd like to suggest a story or submit one yourself, please DM us on social media or email michaeljDorgan@hotmail.com. If you like what you hear, please leave us a 5-star review with your podcast provider. This will ensure that we can get even more podcasts to you more often. And thanks for listening.
Can you dance the polka? And when we got inside the house, the drinks were passed around. The liquor was so awful strong, my head went round.